I arrived at the airport, suitcase in hand, ready for my dream trip to Bali with my closest friends, only to discover they had deliberately left me behind. They thought they were flying to paradise, but I made sure they'd be coming home to hell. The dream was Bali. For 2 years, it was the only thing my friends and I ever talked about. It was our mantra, our light at the end of the tunnel through bad jobs, worse breakups, and the general slog of our mid-20s. The core four, we called ourselves since college. Me, Sarah, her long-term boyfriend Liam, and Chloe. Sarah was the planner, the self-appointed group leader. Liam was her shadow, agreeable and easygoing. Chloe was the sweet one, the mediator. And I was the responsible one. The one who always made sure the bills were split evenly and we had a safe ride home. The Bali plan finally solidified 3 months ago. I'd just gotten a huge promotion at work, complete with a bonus that made my eyes water. Suddenly, the dream wasn't just a dream, it was a tangible reality. I told them the news over brunch, and the excitement was electric. "This is it!" Sarah had shrieked, grabbing my hands across the table. "Our Bali fund is officially overflowing. Luxury villas, here we come." I was so happy to be able to contribute more, to really make this trip special. I pictured us lounging by an infinity pool overlooking a jungle, sipping cocktails, laughing about old times. The planning went into overdrive, spearheaded, of course, by Sarah. She was in her element, creating spreadsheets for flights, accommodations, and excursions. She insisted on handling all the bookings. "It's just easier if it all comes from one card," she'd said, waving a dismissive hand. "You guys can just send me the money. It'll be my treat to deal with the logistics." We all agreed. It made sense. Sarah loved being in control. In the weeks leading up to the trip, though, I started to feel a subtle shift. A weird, cold distance that I couldn't quite put my finger on. The group chat, once buzzing with links to beach clubs and packing lists, would go quiet for hours after I'd post something. When I'd ask a direct question like, "Hey, did you guys get the flight confirmation yet?" Sarah's reply would be a curt, "Yep, all handled." No details, no itinerary attached. When I'd press, she'd just say, "Don't worry, I've got it. Just focus on packing your bikinis." I tried to brush it off. It was pre-trip stress, I told myself. Coordinating for 4 people across different time zones for bookings is a nightmare. I even offered to help, but Sarah shut me down. "Honestly, it's basically done. Having another person involved now would just complicate things." Liam and Chloe were just as evasive. I'd text Chloe to ask if she wanted to go shopping for travel-sized toiletries, and she'd reply hours later with a vague, "So swamped this week. Sorry." It felt like I was on the outside of an inside joke I wasn't supposed to understand. The night before our flight, my anxiety was a low hum beneath my excitement. I triple-checked my suitcase, my passport, my wallet. I laid out my comfy airport outfit. I sent a final text to the group. "Can't believe it's finally here. See you guys at the check-in desk at 5 a.m. So excited I could scream." The replies were just a series of thumbs-up emojis. No words, not even from Chloe. My stomach did a little flip, but I pushed the feeling down. I was being paranoid. Tomorrow we'd be on a plane to paradise, and all this weirdness would melt away under the Bali sun. The next morning, the airport was a chaotic buzz of energy. I spotted them before they saw me, huddled together by the entrance to the check-in line. Sarah was scrolling intensely on her phone. Liam was nervously bouncing on the balls of his feet, and Chloe was chewing on her thumbnail, staring at the departures board. A wave of relief washed over me. There they were, my friends. Everything was fine. "Hey," I shouted, wheeling my suitcase over. "I'm here!" 3 heads snapped in my direction. The looks on their faces weren't the ones I was expecting. It wasn't excitement or relief. It was panic. pure, unadulterated panic. Sarah shoved her phone in her pocket, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, hey, you made it." "Of course I made it. Why wouldn't I?" I laughed, but it came out a little shaky. The vibe was completely off. Liam wouldn't meet my gaze, and Chloe looked like she was about to be sick. "What's wrong? You guys look like you've seen a ghost." "Nothing," Sarah said, a little too quickly. "Just tired. It's early." She grabbed her suitcase handle. "Come on, let's go check in." We shuffled into the line, the silence between us thick and suffocating. I tried to make small talk about the flight, about the first thing we were going to do when we landed, but I was met with one-word answers. It felt like I was talking to strangers. When we finally got to the counter, Sarah stepped up, placing her passport down with a confident smile for the airline agent. "Checking in for Bali, 3 passengers, booking under Sarah Jenkins." My blood ran cold. "3?" I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Sarah? What are you talking about? It's 4 of us." She turned to me, and for the first time her mask of cool composure slipped. Her expression was a mixture of pity and annoyance. The agent was looking back and forth between us, confused. Liam and Chloe were frozen behind her, looking at the floor, the ceiling, anywhere but at me. "Look," Sarah sighed, turning her body fully towards me, lowering her voice. "We need to talk to you about this." "Talk to me about what?" My heart was hammering against my ribs. "Sarah, where is my ticket?" She took a deep breath, and the words that came out of her mouth shattered my entire world. She looked me dead in the eye without a hint of remorse and said, "Oh my God, we forgot." Forgot. The word tumbled out of my mouth, tasting like ash. It didn't make sense. It was like saying you forgot the sky was blue. How do you forget a person? A whole plane ticket? "Sarah, I sent you my money. I sent you over $2,000. My voice cracked on the last words. I could feel the eyes of the people behind us in the queue, their curiosity a palpable weight on my back. Sarah's face hardened. The flimsy mask of pity was gone, replaced by a steely annoyance. "Okay, fine," she hissed, leaning in so the agent couldn't hear. Maybe "forgot" was the wrong word. "Look, things have been weird with you lately." "Weird?" I stared at her, my mind reeling. I looked past her to the other 2. Liam was now intensely studying the scuff marks on his sneakers. Chloe finally looked up, her eyes wide and swimming with tears, but she said nothing. She just gave a tiny, helpless shake of her head. That single gesture was a dagger to my heart. She knew, they all knew. This wasn't a mistake. This was a decision. "Yes, weird," Sarah pressed on, her voice a venomous whisper. "Ever since your big promotion, you've been a lot. So intense about everything, constantly texting, double-checking the plans, trying to take over. We wanted a relaxing trip, you know? No stress." Every word was a calculated blow, designed to make me feel like I was the problem. The responsible one, the one who made sure everything was okay, was now being painted as intense and stressful. The irony was so bitter it almost made me laugh. "I was excited, Sarah," I said, my own voice dropping to a low, dangerous tremor. "I was excited to go on a trip with my best friends, a trip I helped pay for, a trip I put my entire bonus toward so we could get a nicer place." A flicker of something guilt? No, it was triumph flashed in Sarah's eyes. "About that," she said, her lips curling into a smug little smile. "We were going to tell you. We decided to put your extra contribution to good use. Liam and I upgraded our seats to first class. It's our anniversary soon, after all." The world tilted. It wasn't just that they had excluded me. They had used my money, the money I earned, the money I was so proud of, to literally and figuratively leave me behind. They had stolen from me and were now standing here, smugly justifying it to my face. The heat of humiliation and white-hot rage rose in my chest, choking me. I looked at Liam, who finally met my gaze with the pathetic cowardice of a man who lets his girlfriend do his dirty work. Then I looked at Chloe, who was now openly crying silent tears, a pathetic, useless display of sympathy. She had watched this happen. She had let it happen. The airline agent cleared her throat, her expression professionally neutral but her eyes full of pity. "Ma'am? Do these three have a flight to check in for?" Her voice snapped me back to the present. The line behind us was growing restless. My three friends were staring at me, waiting for me to break down, to cause a scene, to beg, waiting for me to play the part of the hysterical, intense girl they had decided I was. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. The deep, gut-wrenching hurt didn't disappear, but it crystallized into something hard and sharp, a cold, clear resolve. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. I took a step back from the counter, pulling my suitcase with me. I looked at Sarah, at her perfectly made-up face and her smug, expectant expression. I held her gaze and gave her a smile. It was a brittle, sharp-edged thing, completely devoid of warmth. "You're right," I said, my voice eerily calm. "You guys should have a relaxing trip." I turned away from them, leaving them standing there in stunned silence. I walked past the check-in line, past the curious stares, and straight to the ticketing desk at the far end of the terminal. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking slightly, not with sadness, but with adrenaline. I opened my banking app. The rest of my bonus was sitting there, untouched. A separate account I'd labeled Future Fun. It seemed the future was now. I walked up to the agent at the ticketing counter, a woman with a kind, tired face. She looked up at me. "Can I help you?" I took a deep breath, the sterile, recycled airport air filling my lungs. I could still feel the weight of their betrayal on my back, but for the first time that morning, I felt a flicker of control, a tiny spark of rebellion. I looked the agent in the eye. "Yes," I said, my voice clear and steady. "I need a ticket for one." "What's the next international flight leaving within the next 3 hours that has a seat? And I mean anywhere. I don't care where it goes." The ticketing agent blinked, a flicker of surprise crossing her tired features before settling into a look of professional intrigue. "Anywhere?" she repeated, her fingers hovering over her keyboard. "Anywhere," I confirmed, sliding my credit card onto the counter with a decisive click. "As long as it's far away from here and leaving soon." She gave me a small, conspiratorial smile, and her fingers began to fly across the keys. The rhythmic clacking was the only sound I could hear over the blood roaring in my ears. A part of me expected Sarah or Liam, or even a weeping Chloe to come running after me, to try and stop me, to offer some pathetic, half-baked apology. But when I risked a glance back over my shoulder, they were gone. They had checked in. They were on their way to security, on their way to Bali, on their way to sip cocktails paid for with my money in a villa I'd helped secure. They had simply moved on, leaving me in the dust. The finality of it was a cold slap in the face, extinguishing the last embers of hope that this was all some horrible misunderstanding. "Okay," the agent said, pulling me back. "We've got a few options. There's a flight to Dublin in 2.5 hours, a seat on a red-eye to Tokyo in 3, or, this is an interesting one, a flight to Bangkok, Thailand, leaving in 90 minutes. The final boarding call will be in an hour." Bangkok. The name hung in the air, electric with possibility. It was in the same part of the world as Bali, a detail that felt like a tiny cosmic joke. It was the gateway to Southeast Asia, the starting point for 1,000,000 backpacking adventures. It was everything Bali was supposed to be, but different. It would be mine. "Bangkok," I said, a real smile touching my lips for the first time that day. "I'll take it." The next hour was a blur of frantic energy. I paid for the ticket, a one-way fare that made my stomach lurch, but my heart soar. The agent printed it out and handed it to me with a genuine, "Have an amazing adventure." I raced to the currency exchange and converted a chunk of my savings into Thai baht. I bought a universal charger and a guidebook to Southeast Asia from an airport bookstore. At a travel gear shop, I swapped my trendy, resort wear-filled suitcase for a sturdy, practical backpack, stuffing my essentials inside and checking the rest. With every purchase, with every step I took away from the check-in counter and towards a completely unknown future, I felt a layer of my old life sloughing off. The girl who meticulously planned brunches and split bills was being replaced by someone else, someone I didn't recognize yet. As I stood in the security line, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a picture message from Sarah. It was a selfie of the three of them, buckled into their plane seats, Liam and her in wide, luxurious-looking first-class recliners, clinking champagne glasses. Chloe was visible in the background, squished in an economy seat, offering a weak, watery smile. The caption read, "Take off, wish you were here." The wink emoji was the final twist of the knife. It was a taunt. A final, petty little jab to make sure I knew this was deliberate. They weren't just excluding me, they were reveling in it. I stared at the picture, at their smug, happy faces. The hurt was still there, a deep, resonant ache in my chest. But now, it was accompanied by a powerful, cleansing wave of rage. I didn't block them. I didn't delete the number. That would be too easy. That would be letting them think they'd broken me. Instead, I took a screenshot. I saved the photo. Then I put my phone on airplane mode and shoved it deep into my new backpack. I wouldn't be looking at it again for a long, long time. The flight to Bangkok was long and surreal. I didn't sleep. I watched the flight path on the tiny screen in front of me, a glowing red line stretching across continents, taking me further and further away from everything I had ever known. I read my new guidebook from cover to cover, highlighting temples in Chiang Mai, beaches in Krabi, and street food stalls in Bangkok. A plan began to form, not a rigid itinerary like Sarah would have made, but a loose, free-flowing adventure. My adventure. Landing in Bangkok was a sensory assault. The humid, spice-scented air hit me the second I stepped off the plane. The noise of the city, a symphony of languages and honking tuk-tuks, was both overwhelming and exhilarating. I found a cheap hostel near Kyosan Road, checked into a shared dorm room, and dropped my backpack onto a flimsy metal bunk. It was a world away from the luxury villa in Bali, and I had never felt more alive. For the next 2 weeks, I forgot the Core 4 even existed. I fell in with a group of fellow backpackers, a hilarious guy from Australia, a wise girl from Germany, and 2 adventurous sisters from Canada. We explored ancient ruins, learned to cook Thai food, went scuba diving in the Andaman Sea, and stayed up all night sharing stories on lantern-lit beaches. I was living the trip I had dreamed of, but better, because it was real and it was mine. I didn't post anything on social media. My digital silence was a rebellion in itself. For all Sarah, Liam, and Chloe knew, I had crawled home in shame. It was on my last night in Thailand, sitting at a beach bar on the island of Koh Phi Phi, that my new German friend Lena nudged me. "Hey, look at this," she said, showing me her phone. "This girl's Bali posts are all over my Explore page. Her pictures are incredible, but the captions are so strange." She handed me the phone. It was Sarah's Instagram page, which was public. And Lena was right. The pictures were stunning. Sarah and Liam posing in front of an infinity pool, Chloe meditating by a temple, the 3 of them laughing with cocktails. It was a perfect, curated vision of paradise. but the captions were bizarrely passive-aggressive. Sometimes you have to cut out negativity to find your zen. Bali bliss. A picture of just her and Liam was captioned, "So glad we have each other when things get stressful." Couple goals. Another one, with Chloe, said, "True friends stick together, no matter what." Girl tribe. It was all for me, a public performance of how much better their lives were without me. But as I scrolled, a cold smile spread across my face, because I knew something they didn't. I knew what was waiting for them when they got home. Before I left the airport in my home city, in that adrenaline-fueled hour before my flight to Bangkok, I hadn't just bought a plane ticket. I had also made a few phone calls, and Sarah's meticulously planned, perfectly curated world was about to come crashing down in a way she could never, ever have anticipated. That cold smile stayed on my face as I handed the phone back to Lena. "Looks like they're having the time of their lives," I said, my voice light. For the first time, seeing their faces didn't trigger a single pang of hurt. It just felt pathetic. Their entire trip was a performance for an audience of one, and I hadn't even been watching. I was too busy living. I flew home 3 days later, tanned, happy, and broke in the best possible way. My apartment felt strangely quiet and large after 2 weeks of sharing dorm rooms and beach huts. As I unpacked my backpack, shaking sand out of my clothes, my phone, now reconnected to Wi-Fi, began to explode. A deluge of notifications, texts, and missed calls flooded my screen. Most were from numbers I didn't recognize, but a significant and increasingly frantic number were from Sarah, Liam, and Chloe. I ignored them and opened my email instead. There it was, the email I'd been waiting for. It was from my landlord. Subject: Notice of Lease Termination. Dear residents, the email began. This is a formal notification that your lease agreement for Apartment 4B will be terminated, effective in 30 days. The primary leaseholder has rescinded her co-signing guarantee and has given her official notice to vacate. As per your rental agreement, without the primary leaseholder's income qualification, the tenancy cannot be continued. Please make arrangements to vacate the premises by the end of the month. You see, Apartment 4B was our apartment, the Core 4's apartment, or at least it was on paper. In reality, when we'd moved in together 2 years ago, only my credit score and my salary had been high enough to secure the lease on the trendy downtown apartment Sarah had insisted we had to have. I was the primary leaseholder. They were just named occupants. Their financial stability tethered entirely to mine. That was the first phone call I made at the airport, the call to my landlord giving my 30 days notice. The second phone call was to the utility company, and the third was to the internet provider. All the accounts were in my name. All of them were scheduled for disconnection at the end of the month. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Chloe. "We need to talk. This isn't funny. My mom just called me screaming because she got a bill from a collection agency." Ah, yes, the fourth phone call. That one was my favorite. I'd called the luxury villa rental company in Bali. Posing as Sarah's very concerned personal assistant, I'd explained that her credit card, the one used for the booking, had been reported stolen. I expressed deep concern that a fraudulent charge for a villa rental had gone through. I provided all the booking details Sarah had so carelessly left in our old shared Google Doc. The company, alarmed, had immediately canceled the payment from Sarah's card and initiated an investigation. They assured me they would be pursuing payment from the emergency contact on file for the booking. The emergency contact, of course, wasn't me. It was Chloe's mother, a detail I remembered from a conversation ages ago about Sarah being too afraid to list her own perpetually disappointed parents. I finally opened the barrage of texts from Sarah. They started off smug, then turned confused, then angry, and finally descended into pure, unhinged panic. Heard you went psycho and ran off. Hope you're having fun being broke and alone. What the hell is this email from the landlord? Is this your idea of a joke? Answer your phone. The power just went out. What did you do? Liam's parents are refusing to co-sign for us. They said we're irresponsible. You did this. You're trying to ruin our lives because you're jealous. The final message, sent just minutes ago, was the cherry on top. Please, just call me. We can fix this. I'll pay you back for the ticket, I swear. I didn't reply. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine and started packing my things. I had already signed the lease on a new, smaller apartment for myself across town while I was sitting at the airport in Bangkok. I spent the next week moving my life piece by piece out of the apartment we had once shared. I was methodical and silent. I hired movers for my furniture while they were out, presumably scrambling to find a new place to live with no rental history and sudden, unexpected debts. I left their things untouched, a monument to our dead friendship. On my last day, as I was carrying the final box out the door, the three of them arrived. They looked awful, stressed, pale, and furious. Sarah stood in front of me, blocking my path. "You can't just do this," she seethed, her voice shaking with rage. "You can't just destroy our lives and walk away." I looked at her, at Liam hiding behind her, and at Chloe wringing her hands by the elevator. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, not even pity. It was like looking at strangers who had once been in a movie I'd seen a long time ago. "I didn't destroy anything, Sarah," I said, my voice calm and even. "I just took my name off of things that belonged to me. My lease, my credit, my money. You guys were the ones who decided I wasn't part of the group anymore. I just made it official." I sidestepped her and walked to the elevator, pressing the button. I didn't look back. As the doors slid shut, the last thing I saw was Sarah's face, a mask of utter disbelief. She had genuinely believed she could take everything from me, my money, my dream trip, my friendship, and that I would just sit back and take it. She forgot who I was. I was the responsible one, the one who always made sure the bills were paid and everyone got home safe. And now I was making sure I got home safe. For good. My backpacking trip wasn't an escape. It was a beginning. I left them in the ruins of the life I had built for them, and I walked away to build a new one just for me. And this time, there was no one to forget my ticket.